Welcome back to Star Trek Pros and Cons with aka Bog and Captain 1701. We're really excited to be back. It's actually been a few weeks. We've just been busy with life, and we actually ended up on a pretty good episode for Shuffle Trek today.
For sure. We got Homestead, episode 23, season 7 of Voyager. Our last episode was Shuffle Trek was Voyager.
Yeah, we also did a episode 7 or season 7, episode 23 of TNG previously, which is weird.
Ooh, wow. Yeah. The algos. Internet man. But yeah, I really like this one. I thought it was, it ended up, it's a Neelix episode, so say what you will about Neelix.
I was going to say, as much as I remember hating and disliking Neelix, I actually really liked him this episode. I thought it was I actually really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was really good.
By the end of Neelix's run on Voyager, or kind of when they got rid of Kess, I think he became more likable. I mean, he was always kind of goofy and annoying, but
yeah, that's the thing. He's like this weird goofy thing, which kind of is weird in Star Trek. But the truth is, I was a little teary when he walked down the hallway at the end there, and it was goodbye Neelix. And I was like, I'm curious if we ever heard anything about Neelix in the wide range of expanded Trek. I'm not aware of any canon Trek that revisited him, but I'm just curious.
I mean, I think he appeared in like the final episode of Voyager, where I think he was playing Cotta Scott virtually with 7 and 9.
I think you're right, so they did include him at least. Okay. I think that's it. I think you're right. This really did wrap his story up.
Because what they did was Janeway kind of was like, you want to be a ambassador to the Delta Quadrant? Like, I'm making this decision for you to get off the ship because I know you want.
We'll get there. Let's start. I took notes as well.
Totally same here.
I started off with a jukebox intro. I was like, what is this? And then they made mention it was... Now, I thought this was interesting. They are celebrating First Contact Day. And
right. Was it like 300 years or something?
Yeah. And so they were listening to Zephyrin Cochrane's favorite music, and they were having a party. I noted that the doctor was grumpy. He was scanning Neelix's food, which was home cooked. And we saw a pregnant B'Elanna. And we get to see Naomi as well. And they've got Tuvok doing his presentation, which of course is a setup for later on. I'm going to get you to dance before you get back to the Federation, Mr. Vulcan. There's actually some good Neelix and Tuvok material in this episode.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Kind of peak Neelix trying to, because he was originally brought into the crew as like the morale officer,
Which is funny because my note right after Tuvok's presentation is, note, Neelix is the worst. So that's how I started off thinking about this episode. I can't remember why I put that down, but I did.
I really like kind of the setup for what happens in this episode, because you start to see that Neelix and Tuvok have developed a friendship over the last few years. And Tuvok is probably more prickly than Spock, in my opinion. Because he's always... he's like way more straight-laced than Spock. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree with that.
And Neelix has always kind of been his companion, like wanting to learn the security operations of Voyager, and Tuvok has always been somewhat reluctant to do that. And
well, I've always kind of liked the interplay between Tuvok and Neelix, and as he notes later that he's come to like respect, I thought there was actually a lot of good stuff with Neelix and Tuvok, and I like that Tuvok was the one that kind of like pushed him to be like, dude, bro, you're ready to like go do this if you want, you know what I mean?
That was a huge moment.
Yeah. And say we had like they found the, so you said, like they said, they found the Talaxians in this asteroid field, and we actually had a cool like special effects sequence It's like one of the last episodes. They were like, how much budget we got left? Spend it.
Yeah.
And so they actually had a lot of custom, unique moments and animations for the effects in this episode, which is always fun for me. I always liked a lot of the ship stuff, and so that was pretty cool. And
so they run against they find the Talaxian colony in the asteroid.
Yeah, and they're taken out by, like, I put question mark mines, which it like turns out it's actually they're using explosions for mining. And so we also get a nice scene with Seven and Janeway and what's it called, Stellar Ops or Stellar Cartography, right?
Astrometrics.
Yeah. But I thought that was a pretty good little. It was like, it seemed like they did not include a lot of Jerry Ryan in this episode, which is, maybe she was getting a little bit of a break. Hey, what's up?
7.
I'm gonna say hi to TK Coverland. TK tuned in. What's up, Leo?
Did you say 7 got kind of a break in this episode?
Yeah, she had only a couple scenes, and I feel like she appeared like on a screen and then also in Stellar Cartography, and that was kind of it.
Well, same with B'Elanna and Paris and Harry Kim.
Yeah, and like
Chakotay.
Well,
I don't
Paris,
even remember Chakotay.
Yeah, you're right. It was probably a pretty easy episode to film, like a low effort one for most of the crew.
I mean, it mostly obviously focused on Neelix and Tuvok and Janeway.
I was to say, I've got the notes like he like wakes up, and they mention that they don't have outside contact with other groups or species, and he gets to go up and they like hit the force field. And it's like, is he trapped? And it switches back to the ship, and I liked like Voyager. They're trying to, Janeway's like, are the shield modifications ready? And they're like, they're almost here, and she's like, go get them. And they're like, the Chakotay and everyone getting ready to go. And then they're interrupted by these aliens. And
what'd you think of the aliens?
My first note is it says, reasonable aliens? Question mark. They're like, this is our asteroid field. Like, what are you doing here? Like, yo. And they're like, hey, we just want to go rescue the people. And they're like, that's kind of dangerous. How about we get them for you? And you know what I mean? I was like, wow, this is interesting.
It was odd because obviously I don't even remember, did they name the species?
Nope.
I don't remember naming the species.
I don't think they did. I actually liked them. They were kind of cool, like snake-like ridge things, and
it was like almost metallic.
I felt like they took Cardassian like neck stuff and repurposed it,
Right. I just was like, they obviously knew the Talaxian colony was there.
Yeah, it sounded like the Talaxians set up, and they're like, and just were like, hey, we're here, and they're like, this is our mining operation, and they know we'll get into it during the negotiations, but we meet this young Talaxian. He's told to get out of there. They're not going to chat with his friend. Like they tell him, they're not going to let him chat with the other crew members, and they give him this the asteroid city tour, which was actually pretty cool. I like that. There was definitely some more than a couple sets, or like maybe I don't know what they did, repurposed the set or something, but it was a pretty solid set. And then there was that cool matte painting, which also had some animation, so it was actually probably CG matte, but that was pretty cool.
The Talaxians were talking about how they pretty much retrofitted their entire last ship that they had to live on this asteroid.
Well, like it's funny. My next note is that they used 6 seeding ships, so they traveled there with their 6 ships, and they took 5 of them apart and cannibalized them to build the city, and so that's why they only have the 1 ship that's left, which isn't enough for them to take everything and go. That was like something I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. You know what I mean? I like that, the idea. Because that's really when we, there's a lot of talk of like when people do start spreading out, you're going to just send stuff out there and set up. It's, it's kind of how it is. I did note, no daddy. So I was like, oh, now I'm starting to remember.
Yeah.
I was like, my husband's dead. And I was like, okay. Okay,
Yeah,
I see where this is going. They get back to the flyer, and Tuvok and Paris are working. And it was like, I thought it was actually a really nice conversation with Paris and Neelix. I like the whole interchange when they were like, yo, we want to like talk with you more. And he's like, can we bring my friends in? And they're like, no. And he's like, I'm going to go then. And then they get back to the ship, and like Tuvok and Paris are like sympathetic and caring and supportive of him. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, that was like not what you expected, man. It was a really cool, very Star Trek-y moment where it's like unlike the modern Star Trek where there's all this tension, it's the crew is like really a crew. They're like supportive of each other, and like I like that a lot. And it really kind of solidified that Neelix is part of their crew. You know what I mean? Like he's been,
and especially with Voyager being that they've been like the whole point of Voyager really this whole time, and we're in season 7 now, is building up the family dynamic of the crew, because like not like they can just go hit up a starbase or Deep Space Nine and refuel. Like they're the only ones in the Delta Quadrant that are Federation. So like they have to stick together.
Yeah. And I'm going to interrupt our reading. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Finish up. I've got a note.
That family aspect has played a massive part in Voyager up until this point. And this is the second to last episode before the two-parter to end the season and the series.
I really liked it.
Oh.
TK chimed in. He said that he needs to rewatch Voyager, which is a good watch, man. I like Voyager overall, say what you will about it, but Voyager is solid. And he's also asked if he's curious if we're going to do Strange New Worlds with Captain Pike, and as it is, right before the episode started, we were talking about that, and yes, we are going to try and do some Strange New Worlds. Probably, we're going to probably do the Lower Decks premieres next, and then we'll probably do Strange New Worlds after that, I think. Maybe. We'll see.
I got to catch up on both, because I haven't really watched.
But yes, the answer is yes, we do want to do that. He says he's enjoyed Series 1 of Strange New Worlds, but haven't seen much of Season 2. So, my good friend who works at Mile High Comics and is a huge Star Trek fan, he is enjoying it overall pretty well. And so I think we are definitely going to give it a shot. Looking out here, dude. So it goes from there. They get the intruder alert and find the little kid and like throw him out of there. And Neelix is taking him back, and they see this interchange between the aliens and the Talaxians where they're like, yo, we're going to blow up this asteroid. You guys got to get out of here. And they're like trying to make their case. We don't have the resources to get out of here in the time frame you're talking about. You're going to kill us, And again, overall, the aliens were pretty reasonable. I thought they were just stating what they were doing, and then they start leaving, and the kid like throws a rock at one of them, and he's like, bring him here. And the guy goes to grab him, and Neelix goes, gangster is the note I have. And he like does the classic Worf, two-fisted Worf Kirk, two fists, and like wastes the dude and grabs his gun, and then like is like, get out of here, and is like, come on. And I was like, Neelix, man, is going hard there.
Oh, I wonder, I did have a kind of a question though, like how long, did they ever mention how long the Talaxians have been on this asteroid?
I believe they said it was as much as 5 years. It was 5 years or less is the impression I got. I can't remember specifically, but I believe it was 5 years or less.
I wonder if at some point you like make like a treaty or something.
Well, and I think they kind of mention it when they're doing and say some of the negotiating, and I have some thoughts on that, but real quick before we get up there, I actually, they had the scene with Neelix and the other Talaxians where the one gal is like, man, we gotta fight, we gotta stand up for him, and everything, and Neelix is like, man, I kind of agree with this guy where fighting is not the answer. We have to figure out some other way to it. And so he goes up to Voyager, and they I was gonna say, my next note is like, oh, I remember. Yeah, he takes him up to Voyager and is like giving him the tour of the ship and everything, right? And this is the captain's chair, and this is that, and they're like, where's your station? he's like, well, I don't really have a station. Like Kim and Chakotay are like, Neelix is like the most important member of our crew. He does so much. He can't work at one station. And they like kind of come to his rescue. I thought that was pretty cool. You know what I mean? But they're not wrong. His home station technically really is the mess. It's the kitchen, which is like his home base. But he is all over, and he has been on the bridge for negotiations for a long time in the series.
And I think from that point of view, like when that happens, I think it's also a point for Neelix to realize, like, while I do have a place on this ship, I really don't have a place on this, you know? Because throughout the episode, he keeps referencing, like, when we get back to Earth, what am I going to do? Like, when we get home, what am I going to do? Earth isn't home to Neelix.
I was going to say there was a moment when he was like this, when he was like, it was part of that conversation with Kim and Paris. I think one of his last things that he said, he's like, this might be the last time I ever see a Talaxian.
Yeah.
And, that's like kind of like, it's kind of heavy, like legit, And so, again, that's part of that. I really like that conversation. I thought that was excellent. He goes in and then he talks to Naomi. Or no, Naomi comes in and takes the kid to the holodeck is what happens, which gives Neelix a chance to have some alone time with the lady Talaxian. What was her name? I don't know.
I don't remember.
Female Talaxian one.
Right. Sorry. I was thinking like I'm glad you brought up Tuvok and Naomi Wildman, because basically Tuvok has been raising Naomi Wildman by himself like this entire time, remember? Because her mom died, right?
I was going to say, did her mom die or something? I can't remember exactly what happened to her mom.
Yeah, because she's pretty much an orphan at this point.
Is she? She was. She is his goddaughter.
Where is Naomi Wild? Like her mom?
I can't remember if her mom died or not. I was like questioning where her mom was. I was like, why aren't we seeing her mom? And so maybe she did die here. You know what?
I don't know. It's just a weird, like, it's another weird Star Trek kid where every Star Trek kid in Star Trek is like an orphan. It's bizarre. Like Alexander.
I searched for Naomi Wildman and brought up some like adult weird future version of her picture. I'm like, I don't remember any of that.
Ooh. Look out of that one.
Hold on. Yeah.
But like Tuvok pretty much raised Naomi Wildman for a long time. I mean, he was pretty much her dad or her guardian. I feel like her mom was killed.
I'm like trying to look it up right now.
But Naomi Wildman's been an important character for Neelix throughout his life on Voyager, for sure. But it was an interesting scene when he's like, I'm all grown up, okay? Like, go away. I don't need help with doing homework.
I was like, yeah, he was trying to like, I was like, how's she going to feel when she realizes that he's actually kind of talking about leaving here? You know what I mean?
But I don't think she did at that moment.
I don't think she did, but it ends up working. There's a few things where it's like, but you're right. I didn't really see it that way, but you're right. And let's see, Naomi Wildman's mom, dad. Let me just Google that one.
All right, this is crazy. So I'm on.
No, we see Naomi hug her in the end of Once Upon a Time. She's alive. We may not see her in another episode, but there's no way she dies, and the show doesn't make a big deal out of it. Okay. So in theory, she's still there. So he's her godfather. Okay. I was gonna say, dude, I don't think Neelix is rolling out if he's like her own soul. Like,
yeah, I don't think so either. But for a second, I'm like, wait.
But yes, as far as
could have raised Naomi Wildman if
the last time she was on screen was Once Upon a Time, but we saw Naomi several times after that. So that would explain.
I wish they would have explained that episode.
I didn't even think about it because I didn't remember what happened to her mom one way or the other. I don't know.
Yeah, either way, that's not the point. But like, the point is Neelix and her were very close.
Yeah.
And so when they're having that chat over when Naomi is going to bed or doing homework, He's like, you don't need to tuck me in anymore. Like, because Neelix at that point has already pretty much decided he's going to leave.
He's like thinking about it. He's thinking about it strongly, and he's like, "Can I give you a bedtime story? It's been a long time." She's like, "I don't need to, man. It's all right. Thank you."
What's that goofy bedtime?
It was almost to me. It was almost like
or whatever.
It was more of like the scene of like him. He was like exploring his place on there, and it was like she was almost giving him permission. It was like, it was releasing him from his responsibility there. And we see him sharing his booze and cake with his new lady friend. I like that scene. He talks about how old the wine is or whatever.
Can I go back? I'm sorry. I want to go back to the Naomi scene.
Sure. Yeah.
That one, besides the end, like that one, you were talking about how, you were kind of sad when he was leaving. I was too. But the one where Naomi was just like, I'm like too old for that now. I don't need you to put me to like that. That one hit me hard.
That rankled you?
Yeah, because like I'm, I've got a daughter myself, and I just know that at some point that day's gonna come along where she's like, I can put myself to bed, Dad, and I'm just gonna be like, oh.
I had that moment. I used to read to my son every night, and there was a moment. I mean, even like when up to I think he was like 13, man, because we started reading like stuff like The Expanse and stuff like that, and we did like Harry Potter. We did, adult level books since he was pretty young, just read fiction. And there was a moment when he was like, he's like, you don't need to. If I want to read, I can read it on my own. And I was like, oh man, But it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's when you got to start buying them comics, because maybe they'll actually read a comic book, man.
Overall, though, like that was a tough scene for me. Like I thought that was the most kind of heart-wrenching moment of the episode, because like I think that's the moment that it's sealed for Neelix, where he's like, "Yeah, I'm kind of."
Oh, that was a big one. He went, and he was like trolling around in the dark. Well, all right, so he shares his booze with this gal. It's old booze. I thought he wasn't sure if he was ever going to open it. He has his cake, which he made. She likes. She hasn't had in a long time. She mentions her hubby used to cook for her.
It wasn't Leola root stew. Like that's all he cooked was like freaking soups. Okay, I want to go off on a little tangent here, and then we'll get back. But it's just a little comment on Star Trek and kind of Voyager. All these people eat is soup.
All I eat for the last 10 months has been soup mostly.
Soup is good, but like
it's good, but I've lost like 80 pounds eating mostly soup. So,
Either way. Anyway, dumb tangent point. Let's get back on track.
Hey, you know what? I'm actually going to put out a short on my YouTube channel with my recipe for the stew I just made.
Check that out.
Yeah, right? But
anyway,
I was gonna say, so he does this whole thing, and then there's a moment where it's like they're talking about her dead husband. He gets the story about her dead husband. He stood up, trying to, they were on a planet that didn't have enough land for them to grow enough material for them to be sustainable, and so he tried to go and grow out past the border where they were told to stay in, and got into a fight with the locals and got killed. Again, they're kind of alien invaders, right? If they're just like showing up on people's planets and like landing, and they're like, "Yo, we're gonna live here."
It's got a lot of like refugee immigrant vibes. They were forced off the.
I guess you're right. They did talk, and you're right. They did mention at the end of the episode how Talax, they can't go there because it was under the control of the. Hirogen? The Hirogen, I think they said.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the Hirogen, because they met Neelix way before the Hirogen.
Dude, no,
it was like the Icorians or Iconians. It started with an I, for sure. But they left because like they had that. Neelix was a pirate basically when they found him, and a smuggler. Because
Haconians. So who are the Haconians?
Haconians, yeah. Like Neelix was a refugee of the Haconians war. Like Kallax had this huge war with the Hukonians. And so he was basically a smuggler and a pirate when he ran into Voyager.
Yeah.
So I think that the Talaxians are pretty much displaced throughout the galaxy at this point.
Okay, yeah, I just looked up who the Hukonians are. All right. We met one of them in one of these episodes. He was like a poison guy. All right. I was curious about that. So, anyways, now he feels motivated at this point in the story that he has got something to negotiate for. Is like, you know, and he had this moment where he kind of went in for like kiss or something, and then pulled himself back and was like, I need to go get ready for this tomorrow. You know. And I really like the negotiation because they're like, look, man, like this is our asteroid field, and they're like, can't you just like, you know, go around this one early? And they're like, this one's got like 30% of all of the valuable material that we want. Like this is kind of the reason we're here, you know? And so they go back and forth, and Neelix suggests that they trade the technology, you know what I mean? And they're like, nah, totally resistant to it. So we see him go back to the sick bay or the mess hall, and immediately the gal can tell that he didn't have luck. But he explains that they were at least able to get the deadline extended, so they have enough time to disassemble their equipment and load it to the ship so that they can take what they really need with them.
I thought Neelix's proposal for using the geothermal energy that the Talaxians had created as an alternate energy source. And then Voyager was like, we'll even like retrofit your technology to accept it. And these aliens like, no.
Well, they were like, you know, we've got deadlines in the timeline. It was unreasonable of them to negotiate from there. But, of course, too, it's just kind of a writer's contrivance because we don't actually see more of the negotiations. It just, you know what I mean? It leaves it there, and then we're told that, like, well, and the aliens are like, look, we'll give you time to get out of here at least, so we're not going to kill you.
I did like that the aliens weren't, that they were reasonable.
Yeah, they're not evil aliens. They're like, all right, you're right. We'll give you the time that you're asking for to get out. But we're going to blow it up. And they weren't like,
if they were Cardassians, those Talaxians would be enslaved or
they would have
killed.
been dead long before Voyager showed up. They would have been
immediately
like, blow that asteroid up, please.
Yep. Can you imagine Gul Dukat rolling up on these Talaxians like, screw them.
Well, like, and this is
destroyed them.
I'm saying it's at this point we actually get to see that scene with Tuvok where they're in stellar cartography. And it takes Neelix a minute to catch on that he's like, we're just speaking hypothetical. And he's like, oh, you know, could you lead them if Janeway gives us permission? And he's like, bro, I'm talking about you leading them. You know what I mean? And that was that moment for Neelix where he was like, oh, and he really starts kind of thinking like, can I do this? Like, is this something, you know? And I like that Tuvok points out he's like a cook and a diplomat. He's done all these different things, and he's like really versatile.
If you look at kind of the Talaxian, the structure, that little society they built, they didn't really have a leader. They had the one guy, but he was kind of sheepish. And just trying to like survive.
Yeah, it wasn't like there wasn't like a council or an elected lead. It wasn't really clear like what was really going on there, you know. And
he's like, guys, we gotta we're just here to survive. Like, and Neelix is like, we can build something out.
Well, there was that moment. It was specifically with Tuvok where because they were going to move them to a new planet. Also reasonable, hey, you know, but Neelix was, you know, right to be concerned. There were 5 other warp-faring species right in the neighborhood who could very well be unfriendly to the Talaxians. So it's like, do we want to go through this whole process to really engage in an area where it's going to be just as risky? Or do we want to, we're already established here, do we want to set down the roots and really fight for what we have? Which, again, I kind of like the duality in this episode of the messaging of like fighting is not the right way to go about this. But also at a certain point, you have to stand your ground. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, it's a little contradictory, but I enjoyed, you know, I mean, We should try and do this peacefully, you know what I mean? And Neelix and my dad was like, "Isn't that like against the Prime Directive at some point?" Yeah, because Neelix is doing this walk. I really like the scene where he's kind of like walking down the hallway in Janeway. By the way, I never mentioned what the fuck was Janeway doing, trolling out in the shadows of the like mess hall. That was so weird. Like I missed that note.
He's always. I don't think Janeway slept more than 3 hours in like 7 seasons.
You know,
I think she just hangs out in the dark all the time and like broods.
dude.
Like that's just kind of her character.
Oh, and I'm actually jumping ahead. That's a later note, I guess. But I like the scene where he was walking. I like their little conversation where she's like, "What are you doing?" You know, and
Yeah.
he's like, you know, and it's kind of a little back and forth. But I like he's got his kit and he's taking his own ship, and she's kind of clued in, like, you know.
You're
And
gonna
I
leave
like
us,
that we get
right?
to see his ship and we get to see it depart Voyager, and it's like, man, that thing's been in there the whole time. It takes up a lot of space. Um, but you know, so be it. But it looked
If it
cool
was a JJ
seeing it.
Enterprise, you could fit a freaking Star Destroyer in there. Sorry, I didn't mean to get you started. Anyway, back on track. Take a drink. Chill out.
Yeah. I just noted nice action and effects.
Turbo lift pod.
Yeah, yeah. So he goes back and he's raising a rebellion effectively. He's like getting all the Talaxians into it and goes back and forth a little bit. And he tells the guy, he's like, "Man, you've worked more than almost anyone else here. Like, don't you feel like this is what you're fighting for?" Um, and then he gets his kiss at some point in there as he's leading his little setup, and you know, and they're going to go out, and he's like, "Let's go get this." And it was again nice action and effects. We got the two ships
Yeah.
flying, launching torpedoes into the asteroid, and like a third alien ship coming in and firing weapons at him and dropping like bombs. That was pretty expensive sequence, man. And it was pretty good. I liked it. And then Neelix like comes back and like is flying around, and uh what is it? The next note I have is yeah, so he like hopes and he's sweeping in front of one of those bombs to take it, and then you see something shoot it out of the way, and it's the Delta Flyer.
Yeah.
And they're like, he's like, "What are you doing here?" And they're like, "We're just helping a friend." And I noted, and violating the Prime Directive, right? Because then you just negotiate this whole thing with these other aliens, and they're like, we were just defending him. Okay, but still, you know, whatever. It's just, we'll let it happen. It was for excitement. It's for the excitement and the action.
At some point, you knew like the Delta Flyer Voyager were going to come in and save the day.
They had to do so. Again, it's really the action and the excitement. And I said, what about the miners, man? You know, now they've got this shielded 30% of the value of their asteroid field just got destroyed. So I like to personally think that once the Talaxians created this shield bubble, they were able to eventually negotiate the technology transfer with these aliens, because the aliens are like, well, I guess we need it now. You know what I mean? So that's how I like to see that playing out. But of course, we don't find out. And then it says, then we get the Naomi is not a little kid scene anymore. That's where this one happens.
Yeah.
And then Janeway is trolling in the mess hall, and I was like, because Neelix, I was like, he's kind of seeing his in the mess hall to say goodbye, and then Janeway's just sitting there like, "Hey, what you doing here?" And it's like,
this kind of thing has happened a lot where a crew member is going through a problem and they go into the mess hall in the dark, and like their main counterpart in the series or whatever is like in there.
It's just the way to do it.
Let's just have a heart to heart kind of breakdown, and then
Janeway notes she didn't think anyone else would be up at this hour.
BS. You notice this too, like
I actually really like this scene because Neelix starts off like questioning, like kind of like hinting at that he's thinking of maybe like asking to leave. He doesn't want to abandon his responsibilities to Voyager, and it's actually very perceptive, and you know, I thought generous of Janeway to come out and like give him this assignment. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's like basically like get off the ship, but really she's giving him permission to do what she kind of senses he really wants.
And it wasn't and you could tell it wasn't a real assignment. Like, because she kind of had that look on her face, like, I'll ask Starfleet, but I'm really kind
I
of
think
pushing
I
you
took it
towards.
as her, like, it was like her telling him, like, you're still useful to
Oh
us. You're
yeah,
still part of our family, but yeah, you can stay here, dude.
you have to follow your heart.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, the theme of the whole episode is him like, I don't, I have never seen a Talaxian in a long time. If I go to Earth, I'm never gonna see a Talaxian again.
Dude, TK jumping in. I had my screen off of the live chat because I was pulling up facts about like Naomi Wildman's mom and shit, right? And TK is dropping knowledge on us here. You ready for this?
Yeah.
In regards to the soup, at least they try to eat it. Unlike most shows nowadays that just play with their food, when I spoke to some of the actors who were in Twister, the steak was scene was taken all day, and everyone hated steak at the end of filming. So soup is probably easier to eat unless it's that horrible veggie hospital soup. So
Wait,
maybe the
Thorin PK spoke to this Twister cast?
yeah, he has like he's heavily involved with like the Twister fandom. He has one of the
What?
he's got one of the original trucks from the movie production that was
Oh
like
my
chopped up and
god.
hacked up to like into a film rig, and then was like he's restored it to its like look in the film. I've driven it. I have a picture of me driving it, and he's got a
Oh, that's
Dorothy
so
that he has in the back, and he goes to the annual festival that's in like Wachuca, Kansas, or whatever it is, wherever they go every year to do the annual festival. And so
Twister rules.
he drives around and does all the like shoots and everything with everybody else who have their like vehicles. And his car is super awesome.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
rest in peace, Bill Paxton, too.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say
Like,
definitely check out
Twister
Coverland's
is
channel.
Twister's like Twister's one of the coolest, like, kind of blockbustery
Dude,
movies
yeah,
ever.
TK's a Twister head. Big time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. But so yeah, Janeway gives
Anyway.
him this this assignment, and then the next one I have is just it's a nice send up. I'll admit I was getting a little sensitive there. I'm surprised to say it. I thought it was really nice to walk down the hall, and I like how they shot it, and how he like walks past all the main actors right near the end, and then when it cuts behind him, they're filled in like Seven and Kim are in the background of here, so you get everyone, and they get those final goodbyes. And then you have that goofy scene where Tuvok does his dance. Aw,
Wiggles his foot.
And hey, in all fairness, Tuvok and Neelix, after the whole Tuvix thing, those guys should be pretty close to each other. You know what I mean?
Literally.
And so he like it shows him go, and he just walks into this gal's house and drops his bag down. And I just wrote down, "Daddy's home," because the kid runs
Pretty
up and
much,
gives
I
him a
thought that
hug, and
too.
she like gives a hug, and it's like, and my last note was Neelix moves in, and
After, like, what, knowing him for like 2 or 3
2 or
days.
3 days into kiss, he's like, "Yo, I'm staying with you, baby." But at the end of the day, for as goofy of a character as Neelix has been, and for as much smack as people talk about Neelix, it was actually a really good episode. I really enjoyed
They
it.
gave him a proper, excellent send off.
I think you did note that he shows up at the end of Endgame in like a transmission, so he's included in a sense in the final episode too. But I am glad that they did it too, and they didn't leave it hanging. Like, what, poor Neelix abandoned in the Alpha Quadrant would have been weird too. But now I'm curious because I believe the canon is that Chakotay led missions back to the Delta Quadrant eventually, and depending on which canon, there's been so many different canons in the extended universe of Star Trek with the books and novels and comics. I'm curious if we ever saw Neelix again. I don't know. If anybody out there is aware, please leave us a note. I don't think we did. I think this really kind of was the end of Neelix's story, and it was well done.
Yeah, they really turned him into a good character. I think that episode really like redeemed all of his goofy qualities of being like the comic relief on
he
the
was still a little
ship
goofy in the episode. And
Right.
and even Tuvok was like, sometimes you're annoying, and whatever else. But by the end of this series, I liked Neelix. I made me realize that he was very much a very integral part of Voyager's crew, and
Once they kind
was a
of
big piece.
once they broke him away from Cass, like him
I
and
like
Cass,
Kes, whatever. Everybody hates Kes. I like Kes fine
why?
because I thought she was pretty cute
Okay, well that's a vapid
back in the day.
Stupid.
I haven't watched a lot of
No.
early Voyager in a long time, so I like Kes though
Ugh.
just fine. I like Kes a
You-
lot more when she gets the long hair. There's
Yeah.
before that she's a lot more annoying. But
She's
Kes
just
is
like a wind-
I like Kes just fine. Unpopular
There was
opinion.
there was that one episode where she was pregnant and they the what are they called? Her species gives birth from their
Ocampa.
back. The Ocampa give birth.
I don't even remember that part of it. We don't need. Let's stop talking about Kes before you make me hate her more. TK also chimes in and says he can watch the Twister adventure that's on it when we went down, going on again here in 2023. So yeah, he actually has a video on his Coverland channel with his awesome truck. So check that out.
When's Twister 2 coming out?
I heard they were working on it. I keep giving him a hard time about it.
I don't see how you can do Twister without Bill Paxton.
Dude,
and Philip Seymour Hoffman. He's gone too.
Do you do it as a reboot? I say you reboot it and tell the exact same story again with new actors, just to be the most outrageous, insane, idiotic thing that you could do.
You already did
Twister the reboot.
What do you?
It would makes no sense. Why would you do a reboot and not just a loose sequel? A loose sequel could be anything. It could literally just be, oh, remember the only tie to the original movie could be we're using the sensor domes now thanks to that effort in the first movie. Look how much data we get now. That's it. And then it's just a Twister movie. It could be anything. That's honestly what they should do at this point, since they can't bring Paxton back, and then have Helen Hunt do a cameo where she's on a phone we're sending you the data as quick as we can, or something like that, from the National Tornado Center that was founded by Bill Paxton's character.
Now
I just wrote the sequel.
Tornado.
Yeah.
Now there's an EF10 tornado. I don't know. Either we can't go into. Maybe we'll do a specific Twister video with TK, because I would love.
TK says that there are rumors it'll be a reboot with throwbacks to the old movie. Why do you need to reboot Twister? You don't. That doesn't make any sense. There's nothing to reboot. You can't just retell the story of Twister 1 and expect it to be any good. A reboot of Twister is the dumbest idea I've ever heard of.
Bog, one sec. I think we just have a video idea. We need to do a Twister breakdown with TK.
I think we should.
I would love to get into some Twister talk, because that's one of my favorite all-time 90s blockbuster movies.
Yeah.
I could talk Twister all day.
Anyway, back to TK. Join us in the studio one of these days, and we'll do this. All right. Anyways, we're wrapping up. That's it. That's all my notes. The episode's over. Neelix is fucking gone. Bye.
Out of 5 stars, how do you rate this?
I feel like maybe I'm overrating it and whatnot, but I'm gonna give it a 4.45. I really liked it. I really liked this episode a lot. I really liked it a lot.
I'd say 3.5.
I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm going a little high probably still. You're probably right. We'll watch more Star Trek and I'll be like, oh, there's way better Trek. But I liked it. I
think my perspective is that as the second to last episode of Voyager, kind of leaves on a happy note, because in the fun finale is just all Borg crazy time travel, crazy stuff happens.
I like in-game because the action is so cool. The action's a level 20, so the story writing can be a level 3.
And I think this episode really delved into the character more of Neelix than we've seen in a lot of previous seasons.
There was a surprisingly good amount of heart in this episode.
Yes.
And it was
really
surprisingly very much, it was very Star Trek. In my feel, it really felt like a very good core Star Trek episode. Like this is
I think you need
like I would put this as a very good Voyager episode and as very important to the series. It's like it's a must watch for the series. What happens to Neelix? I
could totally agree with that. I think it's a must watch for the series, and I would say you need to remove the googly eyes off the thumbnail for this one, because I don't think it warrants googly eyes. If that is our criteria for a good episode, I think you got to take the googly eyes.
I think the googly eyes go on every episode, good or bad, just because that's the branding. But we've had this.
If you put on googly eyes on like City on the Edge of Forever or something, then I'm quitting.
Dude, you know that people will click on it just to see the travesty in action. We'll see.
Yes, but
it's why I put googly eyes on the Enterprise for episode 10 of Star Trek Picard season 3.
That's blasphemous.
No, but it was the point. It's supposed to be a little.
The greatest science fiction ship of all time.
It is. I agree with you on that.
Googly eyes.
TK says he's down for the Twister episode.
We'll have this argument. We'll have this argument till the end of time. But overall, this episode was pretty dope. I would watch it again for sure.
I thought it was an excellent return to Shuffle Trek.
Agree.
And we'll be back next week for another one.
Can we do some plugs?
Yeah, let's do it. Go for it.
All right. Behind me, this way. Hey, there. One of my favorite bands, local Denver, Colorado band. Of course, I live in Wyoming now. But Celestial Wizard. Sing a lot about Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy stuff, thrash, power metal. Freaking dope. Check them out. My history channel, Everything Has History, is taken off. I got a new video out now on my top 4 American outlaws. It's probably one of my favorite videos I've ever done, so check that out. And the Carbon County Museum channel, check those out. So we got Everything Has History and the Carbon County Museum.
I'll make sure to add links for both down below. I'm going to give a shout out to akbog.com, of course, and a shout out to Heis777 on YouTube, who's a coworker and friend, whose channel is huge, and he does a lot of train stuff. And it sounds like I might be able to do some comic book themed episodes with him coming up for the new Invincible season. So I'll give a shout out to his channel. And I think with that, we're gonna wrap it down.
And TK, we got to get this Twister show.
He said he's down. He said he's totally down, and he said thanks for the shout out to his channel, and he enjoyed watching. So we will do. I'll talk to him soon. I might even see him tomorrow or Sunday. So, all right,
that's good. What are we doing Shuffle Track next Friday again?
Yeah, I think so. 9 p.m.
I think like we said earlier in the episode, I think we'll get back to temporary trek. So I think maybe starting in September with a new season of Lower Decks, we'll get into that. Kind of like we did with Picard, maybe episode breakdown.
Yeah.
And then
I'd do Strange New Worlds too at some point.
You mix it in.
I don't have to like every Star Trek episode I watch.
I don't either, and I don't. That's for sure.
I dislike some more than others.
We're not corporate shills for Star Trek.
Not yet.
I wish we were, because then we could get paid to watch Star Trek.
Guys, talk to us.
But we will not be discussing Discovery.
Not yet. Well,
right?
I hope that the channel lives to the point that we run out of material to do so that we have to do Discovery at some point. But it's going to be the last thing we do.
We've got at least,
We've got a couple of
episodes.
years before we get to that point.
At least a couple years of Star Trek content.
Probably like at least like 5 to 10. Yeah. I'm not in a rush for Discovery. I'm sorry, guys. We have subs who are big fans of Discovery, I know, so I try not to be like super.
And that's good for them. Like, yeah, I'm not. I don't hate on people.
There are things I like about Discovery. There's a few things, and I like some of the ideas, and I just wish they'd been developed differently.
I just not like the purpose of the show, and that's why there are 8,010 series to watch in the Star Trek universe, and you pick your favorite and you stick with that one, and go from there.
We'll get there. What do you think? You about ready to wind it down?
Definitely.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead. Let's say peace out, and we're gonna go to the outro. Oh wait. People